Tanya. כל כך גברו עצמו הצמצומים מהסתר פנים עליונים, עד שיוכלו להתעבוד לברות גם דברים טמאים, קליפות, סתרי אחרא. So we said how Hashem created this world, but how could He create something that's imperfect? He is perfect, and everything that He creates is also perfect. So we explained that Hashem made a tzimtzum. Hashem made a constriction of His light to allow things that are limited, and as opposed to Him, that He is unlimited. And therefore this also gave the root for evil to exist. Because all this diminishments and hiding of Hashem's face, they allowed impure things and klipot, shells, shell versions of real items, and to exist, and to come into being. And he says that lekabel chiyutam kiyuman dvar Hashem ruach pi v'itbarach. And at the end of the day, this is all from Hashem's word and the breath of His mouth. Without Hashem's ability to give life, they wouldn't be able to exist, all these klipot. That's why there's a story with the Baal Shem Tov Alav Shalom, where he was, we said many times, his father made him swear before he passes away that he'll never be afraid of anything except for Hashem. And there was a story where there's many stories like this Baal Shem Tov, where he met some shindalid, some demons, and they tried to scare him, they tried to attack him, and they didn't have koach over him. Usually they feed off of fear. They feed off of, because fear is not a real thing. It's you should only fear Hashem. You shouldn't fear anything else. So he didn't give them that fear to feed off of. He wasn't scared of them. They had no koach over him. And he didn't understand why, and he explained to them, because I only fear Hashem, I'm not afraid of you. At the end of the day, who gives you koach? Who created you? Hashem. So I only have to fear Hashem. I don't have to fear my boss. I don't have to fear the government. I don't have to fear a different country. I don't have to fear anybody, except because all those people, who they get koach from? Only if Hashem wants them to do something, they'll do something. So I don't have to fear anybody. I only have to fear Hashem. So therefore he says, that's what we have to realize, the klipa and sitra achra, impure things, they also only come from Hashem. So therefore he says, if Hashem didn't give them light for 1 second, they wouldn't be able to exist. That's why the term other gods is used in reference to the klipot. Right? The Torah commands us not to worship other gods. And Tikkun Zohar says this really refers to the sitra achra, to the other forces in the klipot. Acher also means behind, right? Because we know that they feed off the other side of a person, the behind. So negative forces can only come when Hashem's face is hidden and through the tzimtzumim. So they're associated with God's behind. Because the negative forces, they suck their energy not from the face, from behind. That's why the person's the backside, there's no face, there's nothing, there's no kedusha over there. Only for excrement comes from behind, right? And Adam Rishon, he was used to be, his wife was attached to him from the back. And then they got separated, and then their backs became exposed, right? Meaning to say, when does a person attack you? When can a person surprise you? When he comes and attacks you from behind, right? Or when you want to relate to somebody and engage with somebody, you have to be face to face. If you're behind, you don't know who he is, you can't recognize him, you can't talk to him. The most disrespectful thing in a conversation is when you give somebody your back. When you give somebody your back, that shows like, I don't want to connect to you. So that's where the sitra achra lives, from the behind. And he says, just like when you give somebody a gift, you give it to your enemy, you throw it backwards over your shoulder, you want to give him your face. That's also what it represents. It represents disconnect, represents severing yourself from the other person, which in this case means Hashem. So it says the same thing in Shammai. Hashem showing us our face, His face. Hashem should turn His face to you. That means engage in you, give you siyata d'shmaya, give you blessing, and connect to you. But when Hashem turns His face, haster panim, hiddenness of Hashem's face, that's when balagan happens. That's when sitra achra has the ability to rule over. Once Hashem turns His face, now He doesn't give the active providence. Therefore, all of a sudden, laws of nature and all destruction can run loose. Chas v'shalom. So therefore, a person has to know, at the end of the day, you always have to pray to have Hashem Yisa, Hashem Pana Belecha. Ava sitra achra tumai tovat Hashem asher saneh. Sitra achra, impurity, is considered abomination to Hashem, which He detests. Lachiyut mipnimiyut ratzon cheftzah miti shechafetz ba. But at the end of the day, that's also from Hashem, and Hashem wants it. Ki iman deshadi bata katfu leson oh shelo betzono. At the end of the day, sometimes Hashem wants to give you, but He can't. You don't deserve it. Plus, you're going to get a wake-up call from this. So sometimes Hashem has to give you life force. How? Throwing it over His shoulder. He has to throw it behind you, give it to you like this. Take. I don't want to look at you. Why? Because you did it to yourself. But at the end of the day, it's also from Hashem. So therefore, a person should never blame somebody. To realize if something's bad happening to me, it's from Hashem, and I need to fix the way. It's not Hashem did something to me. I did it to myself, and therefore I made a consequence that now the shefa doesn't pour down nicely. Imagine you go and you have a straight pipe, and you put the elbow pipe at the top. So now all the water is flying the other way. And you have to go and catch it. You have to run like a cuckoo, so much effort, so much tadlut. You say, why is this happening to me? Hashem says, no, my friend, it was straight, it was proper. You started mixing and matching. I told you to do this way, and it would work straight. And you know, you're chacham anishtana. You started changing things around, and that's why the water is flowing everywhere. And you're trying to catch it. So therefore, fix the pipes, do everything you're supposed to be doing, and everything will come back the right way. But if you don't, then it goes to sitra achra. Why does Hashem sustain the negative forces? Get rid of the negative forces. Give us everybody the same. No, because He did this to punish the wicked and to give good reward to the righteous. So therefore, and God derives pleasure from those who suppress sitra achra. Now Hashem, to give us a test, He doesn't make it that every single person who does a sin, right away he gets smacked, right away the pipes get messed up. Sometimes Hashem allows the pipe to be strong and to give a lot of water, even though the guy's a big sinner. And all of a sudden one day, boom! Or one day he sees his friend, or one day he sees his relative, or one day something happens, and then he gets a rude awakening. But we have to realize that Hashem makes it that some people get sustenance and the pipe is straight, even though they did sins, because to give us a test. It has to be that, wow, maybe look, you don't have to be religious and you'll get bracha and slacha. Look, this guy gets, even though he's not religious, so Hashem has to make it that there's like a test. But then in the day, what's going to come? What's coming is something big. And a person has to be careful and has to realize that if you are not following Hashem's recipe for success, then you're feeding the sitra achra, and it's going to rain down chas v'shalom the wrong way. Hashem wants us to receive the energy the proper way. Because God's energy of Hashem's face does not rest on sitra achra at all. And even the behind of Hashem's will does not become enmeshed with the sitra achra. That behind energy encircles it from above. Therefore, sitra achra is a zone of death and impurity. What is the death and impurity? It's sin. Adam Rishon sinned, and then Hashem He decreed that he should die. How could it be? It's because Hashem says, when you don't do my will, all of a sudden, I cannot turn my face towards you. It's a consequence of your actions. And automatically, even if when I send you life force, it's not going to be direct. It's going to be only surrounding you from afar. And you cannot survive from Or Makif only. You need Or Pnimi. You need to have life force in you. You can't have just surrounding. And therefore, automatically, what happens? The Neshama disperses. Tuma and death is what it happens over there. If you take the word Emet, what do we say? The Golem, how do they create the Golem? You put the name Emet on his forehead. And it's truth, Hashem's seal. Once you take a Aleph away, once you take Hashem out of the picture, what do you get? Met. Right away, death. So therefore, a person has to be careful. Then even when Hashem wants to give you life, and wants to give you whatever you need, if you don't allow Him to give it because you take away the vessel, so then automatically you won't survive. And if the sitra achra does not absorb the life energy of Hashem, so how could it exist? He says, because the tiny light and minuscule amount of life energy sitra achra does suck, it receives inwardly, it remains totally exiled within the sitra achra, meaning it only gets a very little chiyut Hashem gives it. But at the end of the day, where does it get most of its chiyut from? It's from you. And it takes from you. Sitra achra, when you start doing averot, you create angels. You create angels, and Hashem He has to give life force. He gives them life force. And one of the midot rachamim is that Hashem says, you know what? I'll sustain you. Even though this guy, he did sins and created you, I'll sustain you. But Chas Shalom, if they don't get enough life force, where'd they come? They're coming for you. They come say, you give me life force. You created me, you have to feed me. And therefore, Chas Shalom, that's when they come and the bad stuff happens, bad decrees, because Sitra Achra is looking for it to have life force, and only when Hashem's not there, that's when they start looking for it to get elsewhere. Chas Shalom. Esod Galut Shechina Niskar Le'er. And that's what it means that the Shekhinah is in exile. That's why the Sitra Achra is called as other gods. Therefore, what we see from here is that when a person thinks that he could do besides for what Hashem said, you start feeding the other side. The other side is these evil forces that Hashem allowed to exist in order for there to be checks and balances in the world. And that eventually leads, what does the Gemara say? The Gemara says, Yetzirah says to you to do this sin today, do this sin tomorrow. Eventually he tells you to do Avodah Zarah. He tells you to do Avodah Zarah. What's Avodah Zarah? Serving other gods. Why do people serve other gods? Because they don't want Hashem's rules. They want their own gods and their own rules, my own Kagda Sistema, Kagda Programa, how do you say it? Each person with his own program, right? And he says that's why the second commandment is Lo Elecha Elokim Acherim. Don't have other gods. What does it mean, the other gods? It means yourself. Don't make yourself into a god. I want to do what I want. Leave me alone. Chas Shalom, that's the number one way to remove God's face from you and to turn away and to let Sitra Achra have control over you. Chas Shalom. Shehi Avodah Zara Mamash, which literally ends up going to idolatry. What is idolatry? Hashem says what I say. Should I do what Hashem says and believe in God, or should I do what I want and believe in myself and think that I could be without Hashem? Hashem says, oh, you think you don't need me? Okay, but look what's going to happen. Go and see how life is without me. And then you're going to see, Chas Shalom, somebody in a coma. You're going to run exactly to see where Hashem is. You're going to see somebody lost parnasa. Oh, right away, where is Hashem? Rabbi, come help me. Oh, I have Shalom Bayit. Rabbi, I need Hashem. Rabbi, I need you. All of a sudden, people wake up. But what? He says this is the power of thinking that you don't need Hashem. Eventually leads to the end goal, which is Avodah Zarah Mamas. Hashem Shalom. Okay, one more line. Ki machash or hayot kedusha b'chinat galut rucha ena batala klal agabe kedusha kadosh baruch hu. He says, and why does the Sitra Achra make us to want to deny Hashem? He says ultimately the source of all energy of all life is Hashem. He says because of ego. The holy light and the life energy is inside the Sitra Achra. The Sitra Achra doesn't allow itself to surrender to Hashem. Rather, it makes you what? It makes you Adara Magbia Atzma Kanesher Lama Ani V'Apsi Od. There's me and there's no one else besides for me. It's like Paro, right? Paro says, I am a God. What does the Yitzhar do? The Yitzhar makes you trick you and thinks you're God. You can make decisions. What did Nahash say? Hashem told Nahash to try to trick Adam Rishon, and he did more than he was supposed to do. He got jealous of Adam Rishon and wanted to take his wife. So it ended up being that Nahash wanted to be Adam. He wanted to be instead of Adam. Meaning to say, then the Yitzhara comes and tells you, no, don't do what he says. Do what I say. Make yourself in charge. Make yourself ego. A lot of people who have a hard time following Torah is because they have ego. And once they're humble and they're willing to listen, some people, when you talk to them, they don't even listen to what you're saying. They're just waiting to say what they want to say. They're already cutting you off halfway while you're talking. And that shows that a person who's humble, he was wait for the other person. Siman Tamid Chacham Perkei Avot says, he doesn't cut people off. He waits for them to finish, and then he says what he says. But the Yetzirah, what does he do? He wants you to think you know better. What does a rabbi know? This rabbi doesn't know anything. Oh, you know better. You'll be fine. Even if you don't give a tzedakah, you'll have parnasah. Even if you don't do the mitzvah, you'll be fine. Don't worry. And you say to yourself, yes, I am here, like Paro. Who is this God? He comes to Moshe and tells him, listen, you're getting smacked with 10 plagues. Let the people go. In the name of Hashem I come. Who is this God? I don't need it. I am our God. I am in charge. I choose who lives and dies. And then, Chas Shalom, we don't want the same story as Paro. So therefore, a person that wants to remove from himself Sitra Achra, remove ego. Ego, Sitra Achra. No ego, that's where you have Hashem space, Hashem panav elecha, v'yichoneka. Baruch